the fortunate opportunity to introduce to you our entertainment director, and she's going to talk about life through the Porthole. She has worked for cruise agencies for 18 years and has worked on 3 different ships. And believe it or not, she has a last name. So
What?
I'd like to introduce to you Lauren Meyer.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Do you guys mind if I sit down?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm just getting myself ready for tomorrow because I've got a 42-hour flight home. Oh, it's going to be a treat. I've got 13 hours left over in dollars. Is it fun?
Oh, it's a treat.
I'm so excited. Can't wait.
An absolute treat.
Can't wait. It's going to be amazing. They have a what? They have a 7-Eleven. Well, that's all I need.
That makes it all worth it.
Bars.
Bars is good. Excellent. So first of all, I would like to apologize because I did make a PowerPoint. I made one on the work laptop, which has now rejected all USBs, so I couldn't copy it. So I went to my cabin last night and I made another one and I saved it on my desktop. And then I was working on it, saved it, and then I checked my desktop and because I was getting ready and getting dressed and everything else, and it had gone into an automatic update, and it's still automatically updating. And so that's how. You should try the crew Wi-Fi. So today, what I thought would be quite nice for you guys is, I know, are we in? What? Are we going? Are we? Is it?
Oh, but we need to turn her on.
Could it be? No, it's okay. I'm talking.
You keep talking. I can start a PowerPoint.
I was going to turn her on, but she wants to turn herself on.
So King Kelly and I worked together for a long time ago in a land far, far away. She and I worked together. So what we're going to do today is I'm now going to hopefully move this just a weeny bit so that you can see what potentially may be on the screen. Signal searching. It wouldn't be the Villa Vie Odyssey, would it? If that didn't be Yes! Slideshow from the beginning, please. Right at the top. Slideshow from the beginning.
I love the
Oh, it's doing it. Yay!
names of these.
Well, let's hope that this works.
You
Would
did?
you be my emergency clicker? Thank you.
Did you
Kelly and I worked together on Princess, and we've established today because we were chatting. When did we actually meet? And it turns out we met on the Coral Princess, and then we worked together, which I remember clearly. We worked together on the Diamond Princess doing Japan. So very happy to have Kelly here. Right. Okay. Next screen, please. Thank you. It's thinking about it. Awesome. So a little bit about ships. Do we have anybody here who would potentially ever want to work at sea? Just Irene.
You did.
I mean, I know a lot of you are working at sea, but the Wi-Fi is really slow, so you know you have to take it easy. But do you know of any people who would like to work at sea and do things?
Yes.
Right, you got a few people. Excellent. So today I'm going to tell you about like how we go about getting our jobs, what we do, etc., etc. But about me, I started working at sea in 2003. I did my first contract on Carnival. I went to sea to get away from my mother, which you would all agree when you're in your 20s is a great thing to do. I had to run away. I worked for 10 months as a bar waiter. You'll see there's a picture there in the middle with me with a little tip. That was my first ever US dollar cash tip. It was $5, and when your currency is the same as the Mexican peso, believe me, those tips are wonderful. I carted drinks around for 10 months, doing 3 and 4 day track cruising in the Caribbean on Carnival Cruise Lines during spring break. It was awesome. Then I left sea and I swore I'd never go back because I was like, this is terrible. I went home and I was waitressing, and I worked in the UK for 2 years. I came back home. I was running restaurants and bars, and then I decided to come back to sea in 2009, and I've been at sea consistently since. I worked on Princess. I started off as a bartender, desperately wanted to get into entertainment. They told me, you don't have any experience, you're terrible, you cannot do it. So I went to P&O Australia, where they didn't care at all. They recognized me. And they said, there you go, off you go. And I had a lovely time. P&O Australia sold off all their ships. I moved back to Princess. And I worked there. I was a crew staff. I became a corporate traveling entertainment fleet supervisor, and then I became an entertainment director because I corporate traveled so much and they ran out of entertainment directors, so they slotted me in, and I never left there. And then I came here to join you guys. So that's my history, and there's some pictures of some of the weird and crazy wonderful things that you can do on ships and that you have to do. Slide, please. Thank you. All right. So, and you can press the gate, please. So, joining the ship. So, this is when you join a cruise ship as a crew member. It's not just, oh well, you know, let's go, and you get on a plane and you arrive. So, first off, before you even start working on a cruise ship, you have to find out which company or which style would suit you the best. It's really difficult. So, for example, before I went on cruise ships, I worked on a summer camp in North Carolina when I was 20, and that's when I realized children were definitely not for me. So when I was trying to find out which cruise line I wanted to work on, I knew Disney was not going to be in the cards ever. So no matter how bad it is, I will never ever ever work for Disney. I promise you that. So yeah, no offense, but no, it's not it's the little ones, you know, when and kids are like drunk adults. It's just they run around, they vomit everywhere. It's just so I decided no, that's not fit for me. So before you join a company, you've got to figure out where you want to go and what you want to do with them and what their thing is that they do. Some places are very fancy, some places are more relaxed, some people more drinky clientele. You've got to figure out what would suit your vibe, and then you would apply to them. Now you do need to have some experience in the field that you're applying in. They don't just, unbelievably, they don't just pick up anybody off the street and shove you on a cruise ship. You do need to have some experience. So what you would do is that you would get your information from a manning agent. So you go online, and if you do know anybody who's trying to get onto a cruise ship, if they say we're going to charge you to apply, then that is a scam. And there are a lot of cruise ship scam places, and they're really good because they get on big sites like LinkedIn and stuff, and they use well-known people like Kate McClue. They Photoshop her face into things and say she's moving here, and she says that this is the place to go and work for. So it's, you know, you've got to be very smart about it. So you find out who the recruiting agency is through their websites, and then you apply. And you have to apply for something that you are close to or able to do. Once you've had that application, you then get vetted by the manning agency. So they will interview you, and they'll say, yeah, this guy looks okay. Let's send his CV through to somebody else within the company. Then they have a look at your CV and things like that, and then they'll go ahead and say, actually, this person looks like they might be worthwhile. You'll have a couple of interviews, phone calls, FaceTime interviews, they assess, you assess, and that's when all the paperwork and the costs start. Because it actually costs quite a bit of money to come and join a cruise ship. So for your paperwork and your administration stuff that you need to get, is you need to get a whole host of safety and security certificates. It cost me, I would say easy, £1,000 to get all the certifications and things that you need to work on a ship. So you have to have security awareness. Depending on your role and depending on what you do, you have to have lifeboat driving courses. All right, you've got to have survival at sea. So you've got to be able to put on the life jackets and jump off a building into deep water. You've got to be able to climb into a life raft, flip it over, jump in yourself. You've got to be able to swim for X amount of time. You've got to have, there's a whole bunch of them. You've got to have emergency first aid courses, again, depending on your rank, your role, and what you're doing. And you've got to do firefighting. And I know Kelly just did hers, and it's a treat. You've got to run into burning buildings with hoses and crawl around the place in full firefighting gear and put out fires. And if you don't have the certification, you cannot work at sea. And that is, there's a bunch of stuff that you have to get. And then also as you go higher, so for example, and that certification you have to keep renewing. So it's not a one-off, I've got it, I've done it, Bob's your uncle, my job's done. In 5 years' time, you've got to go back and do it again. You've got to have refreshers.
Wow.
And then if you've climbed the ranks and you're starting to get a little bit higher, the more stripes you have, the higher you are. Once you're getting onto the higher levels, well then you don't just have basic first aid, now you need to have a higher level of first aid where you're starting to being able to inject things and do whatever, because you've got to be on for that. The firefighting gets more intense. Everything gets more intense. So the higher ranking you are, the more certification you need to have. But when you start off like I did in the bar, I needed to get all of that. Then I also needed to get my medicals. And your medicals are every 2 years. Different countries have different things, and different jobs require different medicals. I'm now in entertainment, which is quite lovely. All I need to do is get a chest x-ray and blood samples, and then have a full comprehensive medical. If I work, and a urine sample. If I worked in F&B, you have to provide a stool sample, full x-rays, everything else. The medical becomes more because you're working in a food handling area. It becomes health and safety qualifications. So that all needs to come into play. So once you've received your job, then you have to get all of those things together. And then you have to get a visa. And the visa is a pain in the butt, because when you come from a third world country, nobody likes you, right? Visas are a pain. So we all need to get a C1D visa, which is a US Seamen's visa, which kind of allows you prohibited travel around the world. So if I'm joining a ship in Australia, I need to get an Australian maritime visa, but that one's easy. That one's done online. That one's great. Thanks, Australia. So you apply for that, and then they let you through on that, but you need to be out of the country within 48 hours. So you can land, but then you have to go. So that's why crew don't get to join, you know, with a week, and you can have a nice relaxed time because you're tired from your flight. You land, you arrive at the ship. So once you're on board, you're considered, you're falling under the seafarer's visa. So it's really important that we move crew quickly to get onto the ships, and then the ship sails. So that's how that works. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yep.
Okay. So once you've got all your joining documents and stuff together, and you've got your medical, your passports, your visas, and all your STCWs, which is Seafarer Training and Certification of Watchkeeping, those certificates, and you've got everything together, then you wait and you get your flights. Now, we're very lucky here, and also on a lot of other companies, they pay for your flights, which is great. But that also means they buy the cheapest flights. Which means that there's someone in an office somewhere which has still got one of those spinny globes and an embarker pen, and they go, we're going to go from here, and we'll stop you there. So who knows which way you'll go. My longest flight ever joining a ship, I joined from Cape Town. I was working on Princess. From Cape Town, I joined in Honolulu. I flew from Cape Town to Johannesburg. I had a 6-hour layover in Joburg. It's an hour and a half flight to Johannesburg. I had a 6-hour layover in Joburg. From there, I flew to Turkey. From Turkey, I flew to Atlanta. From Atlanta, I flew to LA. LA, I flew to Honolulu. And I got off the plane and I had to start working immediately. That's how it was. It was 53 hours from airport to airport. Now, if you're smart and you've been doing this a little while, maybe a couple of years, and maybe you're a little cheekier than some other nations, what you can do, or what I've known them to do, is that they'll take the flights and then they'll deliberately, because they're going to join somewhere like Honolulu, which takes a little while to get there. So what you do is you take your flight, because now you're in transit, right? So you've got your first flight from A to B. You landed in the States, and then whoopsie, customs takes so long that you miss your connecting flight to LA, right? Oh no! So you take the next available flight to LA, which it leaves at the same time as the ship does. Oh no! How unfortunate. Then you phone a phone number and you say, hey guys, guess what? My ship has left already, and I'm still at the airport and it left. What are you going to do? So they will then fly you to Honolulu, and you will wait there for 3 days for the ship to join. Boo! It sucks. Terrible. But that's what people do. So that's how the flights. And then they also put you, if you are arriving before, they will put you in a hotel and take care of you, because technically you are in transit and you are cleared with the Seaman's visa. If all the paperwork is in order, then you know it's going to be okay. And this is why because we have constant changeovers of crew all the time. You guys know it, the crew come and go. You will see tomorrow, for example, there's a group of us who are leaving. We need to be cleared by immigration first, because they need to validate. And certain countries are really, really tough, like Japan. When you arrive in Japan, all this documentation and other nonsense has got to go through to Japanese officials first. And when you arrive, you don't even go through customs. The port agent meets you before customs, and they take you on a completely different trip around to a different area. The port agent helps you pick up your baggage. So you go from customs, you're not under arrest, but you're under watch. So they walk with you, and then they sign you over with documents to the driver, and then the driver signs you into the hotel, and the hotel rechecks you out. So you are constantly monitored in case you want to jump ship or run away. Because Japan's a great place to
I
do
thought
that.
it was just great customer service.
No, it wasn't great customer service. Japan is a fantastic place to run away in, because if you don't speak Japanese, you're going to go really far, really quick. All right, our next little slide. So, what do we have? Oh, the first 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks when you join the ship as a new hire cruise person. And to be fair, whenever you join any new ship that you haven't been on before, because it's weird, but your first 2 weeks are the hardest weeks of your life. Especially if you're a first time, because number one, everything's new. Number two, you don't know anybody. Number three, everybody has a funny accent, right? And you learn the joys of each other by swearing at each other, because that is what you learn first. You will always learn everybody's swear word. I can swear in a variety of languages. I can't say anything else, right? So it's not only the crew, but it's also your passengers. Like here we call you guys residents. On the other, Princess, you were guests. On Carnival, you were just cargo. But get on, drink, spend your money for that. But so you've got to learn the people. So you now arriving from a country where mostly people haven't traveled before. You know, this is normally a first time, and then you are hit with these funny accents and words that you don't know, don't understand. So it's very overwhelming. And then you've got to find your way around the ship, and somehow passengers are always the first. I don't know what it is, but people can pinpoint the new person and ask them the questions first, and you are completely overwhelmed, and you're just standing there going, I have no idea. And then that's on your first moment. You walk on board, you've got your 2 pieces of luggage, because that's all you're allowed. You clearly didn't pack the right thing, because that's the same for all of you guys, right? You didn't pack anything. Half a suitcase could have gone home, and you needed another half. Same thing for us. Then you've got to get used to your cabins, depending on the company, your cabin mate, which is a treat. You can have good cabin mates, but normally you don't. Like, normally they're awful. So you've got to get used to all of that, and then you've got to get used to the ship, the hierarchy, the who's who in the zoo, the stripes, who's wearing stripes, who's not wearing stripes, and then you've also got to get used to the ship slang, because on ships we speak in code. So my role is, for example, the ED. I'm the entertainment director, or here it's EM, entertainment manager. The hotel director is the HD. Today, Gideon wasn't on IPM, and that's import manning, which we'll get to later. So I will say, like I'll call on the radio, I'll go, GSC, ED, are you IPM? Let's go, or whatever. I'll meet you gangway, or whatever we're doing. So when you're brand new, you don't understand these little acronyms, right? Everything's a weird acronym, so you've got to figure your way out around there. And then you've got to figure out the slang words that we use. So let me give you a few examples. If somebody calls you a bumbleclat, that means you're an idiot, all right? Depending on how they do it. If somebody's giving you banana, that means you're in trouble. And if you get a big banana, then you're in big trouble. But it's still not terrible, right? There's a whole bunch of ship slang that you've got to ingratiate yourself into, because you just have no idea what people are talking about. Then you're also lost. And you know how when you've cruised before, everybody gets lost? Even on this ship, you came on board and everybody gets lost. Kelly, you got lost. You've been dating her for a long time. She had no idea where her cabin was. Hilarious. She's not even in her cabin yet. We're still there, just saying. But we all get lost. So you're overwhelmed, you're lost, and you've got to figure this out, and you're away from home. So it's difficult. The first 2 weeks are the hardest. And I always say your learning curve goes from, it's like an airplane taking off. goes like way up before you can start plateauing and getting used to it again. So yeah, okie doke. Oh, and then safety training. That's the other thing. So they throw you in and then it's straight in with safety training. And you're like, but I just did all, no, because you've got to do safety training for the ship. So even though you have an overview of safety, which is what your SCCWs are, you still have to do all the safety training before the ship sets sails. And then you've also got to do it at every drill. You have a bunch of training that they're going to call you. You've got to go to another training and another training and another training. And there's environmental training and pollution training and safety training and human resources training. And when you go to some other country, then they have cultural training. And it's just, there's a hell of a lot of training. And you keep doing this throughout your time. So even if you've done ships for years and years, you still have to go to the safety trainings. You still have to do all of these things. So it's just constant. Okie dokes. Those are the first 2 weeks. Then the average day. Everybody always asks us, what is an average day? I will tell you, here on the Villa Vie Odyssey, every day is a new horizon. There is no average day. There were average days on other companies, but not here. So normally sea days are the hardest days for us because we're working the longest, because you guys are on board. So sea days are the busiest days, because different here again, because you guys are working. You know, we've got people like Celia, she's up at 2 o'clock in the morning, she's doing conference calls. We've got people who start at 10 or a little bit later. We've got other people doing other things. Some people are retired, some people are semi-retired, the kids are at school. So all kinds of things are going on, so there's a constant hum around the ship. So a sea day is always a very busy day. Port days we love. You all go. It helps us out in the food section because they don't have to prepare as much, and we don't need as many people, and certainly in entertainment we don't need to do as much. So sea days, port days are fantastic. And then we also have a thing called import manning. If you ever hear about the IPM, the import manning, you'll hear a lot of the crew saying, oh, I'm IPM today, I can't get off. And the reason for that is that they need to, by maritime law, have X amount of crew on board at any given time in case of an emergency. Because not everybody gets off, unless we're doing a fire test or something with an emergency generators and we kick you all off for a couple of hours. Not everybody gets off the ship. So we need to be able to, in the event of an emergency, get you guys off the ship. So X amount of people stay on board, and everybody has a turn. There's nobody who works here who does not have import manning duties. And this is the nice thing with this itinerary, is that because we're in port mostly overnight, if you're import manning today, you can get off tomorrow. So I was import manning yesterday, and I got off today. And then I'm off permanently tomorrow. So that's great. And then a lot of people ask us about the rest hours, because you always see us working. Like you're always saying you guys work so much. We do. That is what it is. That is part of ship life. It's like being a doctor. You know you're going to be on call 24 hours. That's what you sign up for. That's what it's going to be. You know that's how it is. This is ship life. This is what we do. So yeah, you do work a lot of hours, but the hours are limited. The maximum amount of hours that we are legally allowed to work in a day is 13 hours every day for the duration of your contract. That is your maximum hours. So your supervisor and the manager or whoever's in charge of you, it is their responsibility and their reasoning why they have stripes is to make sure that your team does not exceed those hours. Now realistically, 10 is about a normal sea day, and a port day on this ship is about 5. So you do work every day, but we will come back and say, oh, I had a day off, because you had the daytime off. You're still working at night because you work every day. That is the contract. So you will work every day, but if you get a day off, it just means that your manager's done a great job and you get some hours off. So depending on the manning and what needs to be done, that is very, very strictly monitored. And if, for example, I overwork my team, like Christmas and New Year's are 2 times where I'm anticipating that at the very least my production team will be working more than 13 hours, because New Year's is going to go until, well, here it went till 1:30, so it wasn't too bad. But on other companies, it could go until 4 o'clock in the morning, and they've set up, so 4 p.m. till 4 a.m., that's already quite a chunk of a day. you know, you've got to take that into account, which means that the next day I have nothing on because I'm giving them that rest time back again. If I don't give the rest time back and within a 24-hour period, I will get fired and I will lose my job. So it's in my best interest to make sure, and that is incredibly closely monitored. Like, it is logged every day. And if you mess it up, you are gone because your team are not, you know, not here to be slaves. All right, so that's how that works. Let's see, what's my next one? Life on board. This is what you guys all want to know about. So, crew recreation, what do? As crew, you've seen we've had a couple of parties here in the Coral. We're going to be carrying on with those. I hope you guys don't mind because this is a really kick-ass venue for us. Because it's got sound, it's got lights. We've now also got the silent disco, so we're going to open that for crew one of these days. They can go outside, they can have a wonderful time. We can make a lot of noise because there's no cabins above us and there's no cabins below us. So it's a good area for us. So if, with your permission, I will be handing that over to Meg to at least once a month. We'll do a crew party. We'll close it off here for you guys and we let our hair down. I will tell you, when we're doing a crew party, please let them party because the minute you guys are involved, it becomes work because then we have to go back into work mode. So if you see a crew party, just let them, just ignore us. Just, we don't exist. It's not happening. We don't know what you're talking about. So we do a couple of things like that. We do have a crew rec room downstairs. It's a crew bar. So you can sit down and have a drink after work and we can bitch and moan about you guys. That's what we do. I mean, you guys live here, so of course we're going to. So we go downstairs and have a couple of drinks afterwards, depending on your rank, depending on what you can do. You'll see a lot of the officers. We come out, we'll have a nice glass of wine or something together at night time. There's very strict with alcohol policy here. So please know the guys aren't going out getting absolutely smashed because if you're on board, you have to be ready in an emergency, like a doctor, 24 hours a day. So if you're going out in port, you have to come back sober. If we're having a party, you've got to finish sober, right? So you've still got to have these alcohol policies. They're incredibly strict, but they're incredibly fair because that's what you sign on for. So we do have some great times. And certainly in my time when I started working at sea, we didn't have alcohol policies and I worked on Carnival. So the days were a lot different in my days. Gone are the days where we used to put soap on the floor and run down the M1, which is our main highway area. We used to put soap down, and then when the ship was rocking, because we didn't have stabilizers, we used it as a slip and slide all the way down. We also used to take the mattresses off the bed and bounce our way, like we slalom raced down the stairs. Get down faster. And I remember my cabin mate and myself, she was a really crazy South African girl named Tana. Best cabin mate I've ever had in my life. She and I used to phone security and say, hey, we're having a party tonight, but you made a noise complaint. Come on down. And they would, and they'd come down and party with us, and then we would get into trouble. So that was spot on. We used to have a lovely time, but over the years, things changed dramatically. Obviously, you know, things happen. So those days are long gone, but I will tell you, the heyday of cruising, it was a lot wilder than it is now. It was crazy, but also, they didn't have the work hours in those days, so you worked like an animal. I remember as a waitress, I worked one day, I did casino open, so I worked from 10 a.m. and then my shift changed in between, and I ended up working all the way through the night, went back to my cabin, took off my evening uniform, put on my pool shorts, and I had to go upstairs to go and start the water service on the deck at 6 a.m. And so we just worked all the way through. Those days are also gone. We're not allowed to do that anymore, but I will tell you I was a lot skinnier then. And a lot younger, and a lot stupid. Okay, food, everybody always asks us, what do we eat? We eat exactly what you eat, but 5 days later. It just waits its way down to the mess. I'm joking. Food-wise, you'll see a lot of us have the privilege of being able to come and eat with you in the buffet area, which is it's a privilege. It's not a right. It is something that is earned if you've got your stripes. 99% of people have earned their stripes going up. So you've worked hard, and like I started as a waiter, and I worked my way up, and you've got to earn that right to do that. Some people come in new, but they tend to not stay very long because they don't know how to work. Just say. But some people come in and then they're great and they work really hard. But the food in the crew mess and in the officers mess, we have two different messes. because we cater to the nationalities of the crew. So in the crew mess, if we have, for example, at this point in time, we have a fair amount of Indian crew on board, for example. So we will have like a vegetarian curry, and then something with meat and obviously not beef, but like a chicken curry will be available on the line for them. And then for our Filipino crew, we'll have some adobo or something else. And then for some of the other crew, we'll have whatever we use, spaghetti bolognese, pasta, normal, whatever we have upstairs. We have a few of those, but we also have additional dishes to cater for the nationalities, so that people are having a little something from home. The desserts are exactly the same. So we get the desserts that come down for us too, because the galley is on 4 now, our mess is on 3. And if you don't like the food in the one, because the officer's mess tends to go more European flavor. If you don't feel like, hypothetically, the more Asian side, you just go over and you help yourself to the more European side, if that's what you're feeling like today, and vice versa. It's no big deal. But we do like to come up, and like we said, it's nice that we can spend some time with you guys. It's also a great place for us to hear all the gossip. That's what we do. And then love life. Everybody always asks me about love life, falling in love on sea. Does it work? Blah blah blah. It can work. It has worked. And I will tell you, when you fall in love with somebody on the ocean, it's a completely different thing, because this is such a little enclosed microcosm of a world that normally when you're dating somebody at home, you meet somebody, they think about it for 3 days, then you potentially call them, and then you go on a date and you dress up and you look nice for at least the 3 months. First 3 months you make an effort, you're on your best behavior, until one day you accidentally let slip a fart or something, and then it evens out. It doesn't happen here. It's everybody knows exactly what your problem is, what you look like when you wake up, when you're grumpy, when you're moody. So the relationships are intense, and they're quick, and then they fizzle, and then they leave, or if you're still in a dramatic, you'll never get over them 2 days later, can't remember what they look like. Dead to us, right? It happens on ships, and the relationships happen so much that they actually, I know on Princess and on the bigger lines, they have these policies, because you can fall in love with somebody and then they encourage it, because we don't mind. We like people to be in love, but what we do is once it's serious, you can link with each other, right? So you can say, we are a couple, we want to be together on our next contract, and it's wonderful. So you both sign a document that you'll never leave. You want to be put on the next ship together, and it's going to be great. Then he stays on board, and you go home, and then you come back, and then he comes and joins you on the ship, and then you find out in the interim he's been shagging all the dancers in between, and then you're stuck with him, right? Because now you've chosen to be with each other, and they've put you in the same cabin, and then you have to look at their face forever, and it's awful. So you've got to be really careful. And so a lot of the companies have decided you can link with the partner, but because love happens so quickly on board, you can't link with another partner until you've had 6 months break from this partner. Because you get people, normally in this bar, who are serial linkaging people, right? And they fall in love a lot, so you've got to be careful with that. So that's how it goes. Okay, what's that next? Life on board. Stories. There we go. So I wanted to tell you some stories. Yes.
What about crew? Everybody wants to know, what about the doors around crew with passengers?
If you want to get fired, go ahead. It's like the unwritten rule, but it's also a written rule. Like, there is no fraternizing with passengers on board ships. And if you get caught, then you will be fired. It's a dismissible offense. It's a no-go. But as a crew, you can do whatever you like. Help yourself. It's crazy. All right. So, especially if you're a captain. I'm not saying I'm captain. I'm just talking about, you heard some captains and the bridge boys, and it's weird. But I thought I'd tell you guys some of the weird questions that in my experience I've seen and I've heard working on cruise ships. Okay, so this is not you guys, but this is people who cruise. Does that help. Okay. So one of my, sorry, I've got to wear my glasses because I'm getting old now. My favorite question that I ever got, and bearing in mind, on Princess, I used to wear the stripes, right? I'd have my white uniform with the white trousers, and I have my 3 stripes, and off we go. So I'm standing there on turnaround day, which is the day everybody comes on board, and people would stop me, and they'd say, "Excuse me, do you work here?" And I would say, "No, I just like to dress like an airline pilot." It's fine, because obviously you work here. Like, here's a different story, because, you know, everybody has name tags here. People used to complain because before we even left, they'd be arguing about their cabin because they had paid for a sea view and they got a parking lot. And were we going to stay there? We are going to move. I often get asked, do these stairs go up or down? That happens more than you think. There is this thing, like, I find also with my mom, and I love my mother dearly, right? I really do. She drives me nuts. You can put that on the internet. But she drives me nuts, but I adore the woman. But I find when I go home, my mom, because she's an incredible woman, she's still running around, she's 77, she lives by herself, she's all over, she does everything by herself. The minute I go home, I'm like, what happened? You know, can't do anything, doesn't know. It's the same when people come on holiday, right? This happens to everybody. You go on holiday, you leave your brain behind, and you're standing there going, what the hell? So this happens a lot. People would ask us, like, what time is the 7:30 show? And sometimes I just need to walk away because my level of sarcasm is very low. We would get, does this elevator go to the front or the back of the ship? And I'm like, that's not how they work. Astonishingly, when sailing on Princess, I would have turnaround days in Seattle or San Francisco, and we were going to Alaska, and people would ask me, do we have to change our currency to Alaskan dollars? And I'd be, no, government, it's America. The ocean is too noisy. We get that a lot. What language do they speak in Hawaii? Is the island completely surrounded by water? It is, yes.
Still.
A lot of people always ask us, because we get these people generally, and I hate to say it's generally men who are trying to be like, and then they'll say, so how high above sea level are we then? And I'm like, 3 days. Right over there. Like, it's not even a question. Then we've had people who, and again this was on Princess, we had this couple, we had this system which we used to log complaints, right? We called it a GEM, a guest experience moment. So if you had a complaint, I could put it in the system and it would pop up because I would allocate it to guest services, or guest services would allocate it to me because it's an issue about my department. So I could then phone the guest and say, hey, you said this, thank you for letting me know, that's great. So, and because I had the ranking I had, I could read all of them. I didn't only get to read what was allocated to my department, I could read every department. And the Shorex team that we had people complaining because they didn't know they would get wet on the snorkeling tour. On the Diamond Princess, we had a guy came back from, and we were doing Japan season, we were just going around. It was beautiful, Japan's amazing, but the guy came back and he complained. He actually needed to have a sit-down conversation with the guest services director, and I was standing close enough to hear it because I'm not at all inquisitive. But he was complaining about why was Japan so Japanese? Why was everything Japanese in Japan?
Oh my Lord.
He couldn't read the street signs, he couldn't figure out anything, and nobody spoke the language. Why did we come here? And we were like, you booked it. Then, in my experience, when I was working on Carnival, and I was a waitress, I had a moment, I was walking around with my tray, and I was delivering my 500 pina colada for the day, And you know how the crew are when we know you, we get to chat and you can say, oh yeah, I've been here before, there's this really cool place around the corner, like you can go and get this here, or don't bother with this one, it's great. So I was having this conversation because we were doing Cozumel, Mexico, and they stopped and they said, do you know of any way to get tequila? And I was 23, so I was like, do I know where to get tequila? Let me tell you. So off we went on this long rant. And at the end, they said, gosh, Lauren, thank you so much. You're super helpful. And I said, you're very welcome. Have a wonderful time. And they said, before you go, where are you from? And I said, I'm from South Africa. And they said, and do you speak English? So I said, no. And I left. I was really annoyed with that. And then my favorite moment that has ever happened to me at sea before, and after this, I'll open for questions because we've got a few minutes. My favorite moment that ever happened, I was working on Princess as a bartender on the Dawn Princess. Fran, you've been on the Dawn Princess, I think, say a few times. So way back when, so the Dawn Princess, she was a beautiful ship. And I used to work the bartender, but sometimes I would work the coffee bar, the casino bar, the martini bar, but there was a bar at the back of the ship, which was a nice big open bar. And the atrium, the guest services desk or the reception desk was down in the atrium on deck number 5, midship. So what happened was, as a bartender at the end of the night, when I had finished working, because my bar was an outside bar and you had to pack everything away and padlock it, I had to come down and sign a logbook at guest services saying that I had padlocked everything and I'm confirmed, bar is safe, locked up, everything locked, it's done and it's clean. So I had gone down to guest services to now go and sign my logbook, but there was this passenger standing at the guest services, and there was one person on reception at the time, and the logbook was like behind them, so I couldn't get to it, so I had to stand there and wait. And this guy was complaining because we had advertised in the Princess Pata whale watching between 7 and 8 as we were leaving this port as a recommended viewing whale watching. And it was 7:45, and he was upset because he hadn't seen a whale. And he had come down to complain, which is stupid. So the receptionist was trying to be nice and tell him, like, this is stupid. So the guy was like, you've said whale watching, I've been standing outside since 7 o'clock and I haven't seen a whale. The receptionist was like, sir, it's a recommended viewing time, this normally happens in this port, sometimes there's whales, if you're going to see them, it's going to be at this time. They don't. But I haven't seen a whale. You said there's whales, and rah. And the guy said, but sir, they're wild animals. We can't control what time they're coming up. It's a recommended viewing time. This guy said, but you said you would get me whales, and I demand right now that you find whales. So the guest services guy said, okay, because you can see he was just like, that's it, I'm done. So he picks up the phone, dialed the number. It was in the old days. They were still doing that. So he dialed the number. And he held the phone up and he looks at the guy straight in the face and he said, they're on the way. The guy turned around, went upstairs, and went to look for the whale.
Oh my God.
So that's my favorite thing that's ever happened to me. Because I almost died in that moment, right? Like when you're watching somebody fall down the stairs and it's both horrific and hilarious at the same time. I was watching this guy's career path just go. And he lost his job eventually because he had had enough, and I decided to never ever work on guest services. Never. Do we have any questions, guys?
What's this joke here?
So which one?
Read the joke.
Oh, the romantic cruise sounds good, but what do you suggest for my husband's vacation?
Okay, I gotta ask, what's the craziest thing that's happened to you on the Odyssey?
On the Odyssey, just waking up every day. I think just waking up. It's been different because it's interesting. Because as you know, when I got here, there wasn't anything here. And I think it was the most interesting thing was me walking around on my first day going, so where's the stuff? Like, what am I supposed to do? So it was interesting. I think the craziest thing we ever had was the timber situation. I don't want to talk about it. But I'm glad that some people got to see the violin lessons at night, even though we were tugging you back. Yeah.
guys all survived during COVID?
So during COVID, I was home for COVID. My contract had finished, and I was actually just due to go back, like in 3 days' time. And they emailed me and said, don't go to the airport, because I already had tickets and everything. Like I was ready to return. So I sat at home for 2 years with my mother. And I tried to bake cupcakes and things because you couldn't get jobs, because in South Africa everything was really strict, like everything shut down. And it's something that people don't realize is that when we're not on board, we don't get paid. So you get paid for your time here, but you don't get paid for your holiday at home. It's not like, you know, a 12-month salary. It's however many months that you're working. So COVID was great. Loved it. It was wonderful. Great living at home with my mother. So, you know, trying to make some money, I baked cupcakes, and then they closed all the craft markets, and I wasn't quite sure if that was for COVID or because of my baking.
The answer to this question is yes. Are you coming back?
I don't know, because I do not actually have a contract. And there is one thing that I've learned at sea, is that you don't say yes or no, because until the contract is in. And again, big corporations, you get an automatic rehire unless you're being terrible and you get fired. And even then, sometimes they fire people, they still bring them back. You're like, what the hell? Why is he, what? And then they promote them. What? It happens quite a bit. So until the contract comes in, it's definitely. Sorry?
The key word in that sentence is in.
Yes. Bring them back, that's it. Thank you. But we'll see what happens. It's been a pleasure. Yes, another question, Pat.
Big question I've always had on cruise ships.
Yes.
Is the crew specially trained to remember people's names?
Are the crew specially trained to remember people's names?
They can remember everybody's names.
So,
Good question.
number one, you guys wear name tags. Thank you. Because I'm really bad at that. And when I was a bartender, I wouldn't remember your name, but I'd remember what you drank. And I would remember, because I'm terrible with names, but I am an exception to it. I really suck at names. But I will remember things about you. And I think it's just the service industry that you just get used to it. I will, just on a side note, I used to waitress at the seafood restaurant, right? And we had this guy who would come in every week. He'd bring 6 people in, so it was a good table. Like you needed a table like this. He would come in, and every week they would order starters, mains, desserts, and he would complain about it, right? And I'd send something back, and I'd have to get another one. But he'd still come back next week. And the one day I got so tired of him, and I was busy because there were only 2 of us in a 48-seater restaurant. And it was busy, and it was fast food. And I remember running around, and they were asking me, like, don't you need to write this down? And I said, no, because I know your drinks. If you tell me what I still inherently, you can give me 15 drinks and I'll remember who's drinking what. And there's something that I'll switch in my brain. But this particular guy, I saw it was him, I knew it was him. So I ran down to the kitchen and I said, make me 2. So when the food came out, I said, which one do you want? He's like, what do you mean? Because I'm doing this in front of all of his buddies. I said, you come in here, you complain every week. I'm busy. You do not have time. Choose a plate. Like, this one or this one, they're exactly the same. Which one? So he took one, he ate it. They paid me 100% of the bill, but he never came back. 50-50, it was a good bill though. It took me 100%. Any other questions?
You said you work 13 hours. How many hours do you have to sleep?
So 13 hours is the max. I didn't say I work 13 every day, but 13 hours is the maximum amount that you can legally work in a day. So you will have your 11 hours, so for example, if I went over, my 10 hours of rest that I'm supposed to have within a 24-hour period can be broken up if necessary. So this covers me for the New Year's, for example, the New Year's parties and things like that. I can have 6 hours consecutive rest and then 4 hours. I can never have less than 6 and 4 within a 24-hour period. Then I can have 7 and 3, 8 and 2, 9 and 1. I have to have that. So if, for example, it was New Year's and my guys have worked over, if they have worked over, I have to give them that time back. So if, for example, you've worked 15 hours, you need to have an extra. I need to give you your 10 hours and I've got to give you another 2 to make up for that time so that we are ILO compliant. It is incredibly strict. It's very confusing. You're just not sure how it all goes. Cool. Bonnie, last question.
Is there software to help you with that, or is this an old graph? Paper that
It's a computer system, but they log in and log out before you come up to work. You log in, you log out.
and
So
the
we keep it-
supervisors would see if there's
Supervisors go in
problems.
and they have to confirm. And because it's me confirming, if that is wrong, I'm in trouble. Like big trouble. Okay. That's our thing, by the way. We're going to miss it. Anything else? That's it.
Well,
Sorry.
you don't actually work for the ship, right? You work for a
I work
company.
for an outside company.
And what's
So
the name?
I work for Peel,
Peel.
and everybody else works for Columbia, and the spa work for somebody. I don't know who they work for, but that's how it works. And collectively, Villa Vie employs Columbia, Peel, and whoever the spa is to bring people on. So it's up to Peel to renew my contract. It's up to Columbia to renew the contracts. It's not up to Villa Vie.
Can
Yes.
we ask Villa Vie to renew that?
You can ask. They may laugh. They may think I don't know. Yeah, you can do whatever
is
you
it-
like.
or do we go to Columbia?
No, you don't go to Columbia.
Peel.
Yeah, but it's
Which is
again.
better.
Don't get too involved, guys. It's like, imagine if your mom wrote to your boss and said,
Right.
JR's lovely, you should keep him employed. What is your boss going to think? Seriously, JR's mom's going to tell us to keep him employed? What the hell, man? He's whatever age. No, I didn't want to say anything. But whatever age. So, you know, leave it up to the people. But yeah, hopefully we'll see you soon. But I know we're running out of time.
Love you.
Okay.
So
We
thank
love
yes,
you.
I love you.
yes,
Yes.
Did you work for Princess? Did you work for Princess or for a company like
Princess employed for Princess because it's a major corporate. Technically, we work for Carnival. So your contract was Carnival Princess. Yeah.
Thank you very, very
Great
much.
pleasure.
Lauren.
Thank